探偵っていうのはお前さんかい？
ある男のことを調べてもらえんか？
先輩、あの紙袋の鑑定結果が出ました。佐々木の無念を晴らしてやってください。お願いします。
で、何が聞きたいんだい？
一体何を嗅ぎ回っているのかしら？
ご同行願えるかな？
僕はただ真実が知りたいんです。
Emio, the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club.
Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting collection reflection video where I take the time out to just go through my whole entire gaming library. It could be a game, could be a console, or it could be a limited edition. But today, we're gonna amp up the spook factor just by a little bit because, oh shoot, I know it's not Halloween, night, but we gotta talk about some Emio, the Smiling Man. Now look, this is a game made by Nintendo, and you heard me right, I said by Nintendo. And the fact that there's not a T rating up on this game, no. Better zoom in close because that is a mature rated game. And gosh by golly, it's not every day we get to see Nintendo come out here releasing a IP under their umbrella that's rated mature. Like, this is the first time in like a long time. The next closest thing we had is like what, Eternal Darkness back on the GameCube or whatever though. But I mean, outside of that, it's like those are few and far between. We get a lot of games that are like rated E or E10 plus or whatever, and then you get a few games here and there where it's like T rated, where you manage to get releases for like Fire Emblem or Xenoblade. But outside of that, like, honestly, there's not a whole bunch of other ones that you can kind of go through and expect to see from Nintendo though. This game managed to come out on the block around fall of last year in 2024, and man, this is some kind of crazy spooky experience though. But we might as well go ahead and jump up in this thing though, because I have quite a bit of things to say about this game. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. And if you're curious and want to support the channel just a little bit more, then feel free to hit that join link down below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Emio, the Smiling Man. Now, for a lot of people out there, you might have your people that love your RPGs. You'll have people out there that love platformers and stuff like that, your Souls-likes, and there's about a genre for almost everything under the sun at this point in the gaming sphere though. However, one of the genre games that doesn't get not nearly as much love as what it probably honestly should are visual novels. And when I think about visual novel games, one of the first iconic ones to come up in the mind for me personally is the Ace Attorney series. Look, I managed to have the Ace Attorney trilogy 1 through 3, and I have 4, 5, and 6. I had both of the great Ace Attorney Chronicles games as well as the investigation games. Like, I have the whole entire series now on my Switch back there. It's a great thing to behold though. But I mean, in terms of like my favorite genres, I wouldn't say visual novels are definitely like one of my go-tos, but when you do find a great story and the gameplay is good and it basically blends and matches quite well with each other, it's a really great experience though. Much like, the Ace Attorney series up in here though, Nintendo has managed to pull one back out of their back catalog. We're talking about an ancient old Famicom game, and yes, bringing back the Famicom Detective Club series games though. And we saw that within the remakes, a couple of games that were back on that original Famicom, and I think they dropped them like a few years ago, shortly after like COVID or whatever though. You had two different games. Now, whenever these games came out, I didn't manage to buy both of them, but I did manage to buy the Missing Air, because I think between the two different stories, I thought that the story behind Missing Air would be a little bit more pressing to me, where I would pull a little bit more out of it though. However, you're able to get both of these two games digitally off of the eShop or whatever though. But at least with my experiences with it though, it's definitely a different slice of a visual novel game. It does a lot of the things that you kind of expect within a visual novel game like an Ace Attorney or whatever though. But I feel like this one was probably one of the, would it being from the Famicom series, and that kind of predates a lot of different visual novels, like it was definitely one of the first few that were trying to pioneer it though. But Nintendo for whatever reason decided to bench line or sit that game up on the bench for a long period of time though, before finally managing to bring it back. So they managed to remake those first two games, and then all of a sudden then they say, you know what, we're really pulling this mess out of the grave now. We did remakes of some ancient old games, now we're gonna bring over some brand new title though. And yes, that is Emio, the smiling man. Look, even when you're looking at this box art on this dude, like you got this creepy, freaky masked man or whatever though, and then you got a few of your detectives down here at the bottom though. Man, the marketing on this game, I would say, was really clever. If you think back to whenever this game was first revealed, it didn't really give us too much of it. They just said, who is Emio? You saw this dude over here in like trench coat or whatever though, paper bag up on his head though. They did some kind of weird stuff with the lighting, like fizzle it out and stuff like that. Like it was some really weird and trippy stuff, and nobody had any idea what this could have been. People were thinking, oh, is this like, was it Eternal Darkness? They weren't necessarily associating this with Famicom Detective Club or whatever though. Or is it gonna be like a equivalent to like a Resident Evil game, but with a Nintendo spin on things? No one really knew exactly what it was until they managed to come out almost like a week or two later and said, oh, this is the next Famicom Detective Club game. And I would say that was extremely clever, because you don't get a lot of hubbub or whatever for a lot of games if they're horror related from it being a visual novel. If it was just general horror related, like a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill or something like that, and yeah, you get people talking about it though. But visual novels, you will have your tight knitted circles, but not nearly as big as like, you know, a lot of these other genres we see nowadays though. So I would say tip my hat off to the marketing team up on that though. But in terms of like the overall story, the gameplay, what you kind of expect to see out of this game though, obviously playing as the dude character who's been in the series for the longest period of time though, accompanied by Ayumi Tachibana though. However, as you playing through as the dude, it's not just you playing as the dude only like you did in like the couple of remakes that happened a few years ago. You're actually able to switch off between being him and be a Ayumi Tachibana, so you get two little different angles to kind of witness the whole entire story play out. So that was really cool in and of itself. And then obviously you got to talk about Emio, like the dude with the mask on his face. Now I like how this whole entire story, even from the developer, whenever he was talking and breaking it down and stuff like that, it's based off of an urban legend. So they took some little things that's somewhat kind of true, but I mean not exactly true. It's just all kind of, you know, he said she said kind of things, you know, throughout the course of history or whatever though. But I like how they kind of based it upon that, and it's kind of evolved upon it though. So you had this dude that was going around seeing like these different girls or stuff like that. They'll be crying or whatever though, and then literally if he happened to see a girl crying or something like that, where they've been sitting on the side of the road or something, or by the side of a building, if he happened to see one of them, they look at him, at his face or whatever though, and they couldn't, you know, manage to stop crying or whatever though, or manage to crack a smile, then he would do something off that character or whatever though, and then leave a paper mask on it with a little smiley face up upon it though. And gosh, when you just think about that concept in general, like that ought to send some shivers down your spine. Like what the heck? You had this dude coming around here and just killing different girls or whatever though, you know, leaving those masks up on them. Like, oh my gosh, like that just sounds freaky and insane though. So obviously an incident happened to pop up. You working at the detective agency, you're like one of the first few on this case though, and then you're trying to basically go around and figure out who is the one that's doing all of this stuff though. And I was thinking as I was going through and playing this game, and I'm not going to get like super deep into the story because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody though, but I was thinking, I was like, maybe it's going to be somebody that I know that's the one behind all of this though. And honestly, I don't care how good you are with your perception on things or how many visual novel games you manage to play through, but whoever is the one that's actually committing all of this stuff, probably not anybody that you would honestly expect. That's all I'm gonna say, at least the main culprit behind all of this stuff. But you do have a strong cast of characters that support you along the way and stuff like that. And one of the things I think I truly like about this game is the voice acting in it though. It's both a flaw, I would say, as well as a bonus. The bonus is that there is voice acting. Like you get to hear something come out of these characters' mouth every time you interact with something in an environment where you're moving at, could have been a mouse or whatever though. When you're observing different things, talking to different people though, that's really cool. But the one hindrance is it's all Japanese voice acting, no English voice acting whatsoever, which understood it for the original titles for them just to only do Japanese, because I mean, let's face it, it's not necessarily the biggest franchise. It's not a Fire Emblem, it's not a Xenoblade or something like that, where it's like, you know, you're gonna rank in millions of copies sold or whatever though, so it kind of justifies the means. But at the same point, with it being a visual novel game, I can't say how much it would vastly improve the whole entire experience if we were to have an option of English voice acting, whatever though. So you're basically just going through reading all the English and then just hearing the Japanese audio. It's good to have options. That's all I'm saying. It's good to have options. Now, outside of that, you know, then you kind of get into the actual gameplay itself, which I do like how they managed to modernize a little bit of stuff, even from the remakes they managed to do a few years prior to this, though, because there were some nitpicky things where it's like, you can kind of bang your head up against a wall, like you know exactly what you probably should do, but getting certain events to trigger in a certain order, like that was kind of But I guess maybe some of my experience from playing the remakes before this actually kind of went to help my experience within this one game in particular, though. So I felt like things were a little bit more streamlined, and I wasn't necessarily running into as many walls, though. But y'all gotta let me know if anybody's out there has jumped into this game first. I would like to hear if y'all managed to hit any roadblocks and it was kind of a little tough for you to get on and going, though. But there's like little subtle cues and stuff like that. You're able to pull up your journal, though, kind of figure out all the different notes that you managed to take from start to finish to where you're at right now, and that can kind of spur up some different thoughts in your mind of like, all right, who you got to talk to next or whatever, though, or if you got to examine somebody or ask them more and more questions because they're not done giving you all that extra information and stuff like that, though. So that's some, you know, cool stuff I like about the gameplay. Now, in terms of the visuals, because it is a visual novel at the end of the day, in terms of the art style, there's not too much more that changed between those first two titles that were remasters from before versus this brand new entry in the series, though. But it's just something about the way how they do the animation and stuff like that, or like the little bits of video, because like they do have some cutscenes up in this game, though, especially towards the very end. But that's all I'm going to say on that. You get a really nice treat once you do manage to beat the game, though. But if you know exactly what I'm talking about, though. Little scenes like that, just little things that happen in the background, or it's like some side scrolling stuff. It kind of just brings everything to life, and it just kind of gives it a nice good flair where it's like, oh man, this is a nice little experience. Now granted, I can't sit down and play a visual novel game for like hours in like one kind of play session or whatever, kind of like how I can do with RPG, but you know, just taking little pieces at a time, just slowly working yourself through this game, though, it's still a great marvel to behold, because when you get about the whole entire story, which I can't really dive too much up in it, though, I thought it was a really nice story from start to finish, though. Like, they did have a lot of different plot twists up in there. I mean, yeah, when the dude Emio happens to show up in certain scenes, though, like, it does send a shiver down your spine. There were some moments I was like, whoa, what the heck just happened over here, though? Or I was like, oh man, that dude's right there. I mean, there's those moments up in that game, though. So hey, if you like yourself some horror, it's there. It's not like constantly always there, though, but it does strike when the mood is set just right. But man, oh man, I could probably keep going on and on about it, though. But in terms of a visual novel game, hey, you can't go wrong with Emio the Smiling Man. I'm just saying, like, this is a great experience, and I don't need a lot of people sleeping out on this series, though, because it is great. At some point, I do got to go around and playing the other one that released, not the Missing Air, but the other one. I do manage to get around playing that at some point, though. But if you hadn't taken the plunge on Emio the Smiling Man, hey, this might be a good Halloween game if you're looking for something like that, or if you just like horror related stuff, spooky stuff, go ahead and try this out. It's a really nice experience. I'm just saying, though, even if you're not necessarily a visual novel fan, I'm telling you, this game will definitely throw you for a few loops. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video, though. But if you really like this, make sure you go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. And if you're curious and want to support the channel just a little bit more, then feel free to hit that join link down below. But that's gonna do it for today's video. So remember, y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.